Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is Chris, and welcome back to once again another episode of Madden Maniac Previews. How is everyone doing today? Today's episode, we're going to be doing a matchup that happened last year between the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Ravens. And what's interesting about this one is that for the first time this series, we're gonna have a AFC team be the home team. This entire series, the reason why the NFC team has been the home team is because if you compare the two teams, the NFC team always had the better record, so they got the home field advantage in these simulations. But for the first time, it was the Ravens that had the home field advantage, and I think the reason why I ended up doing it that way was because I think the Ravens, I'm pretty sure they had a different record, or if that wasn't the case, they had the head-to-head advantage because they beat the Lions. As far as I know, it's one of those two things, but that is why we are now having an AFC team host. And that will not happen again, I think, until the divisional round, when you have the Steelers hosting the Saints. So that's just that's what to look forward to in the upcoming episodes. So we're gonna do a 1 p.m. game, all that stuff. Let's advance to the game. So I know I said last episode that things are gonna start going a little bit ahead of time. That's gonna be a little while before that ends up happening. Right now, this episode and the next episode, they're gonna basically be pretty close to each other overall. That close to the upload time, so I will not be completely off of what. If anything crazy happens, I will not be too far away from when I record it and when it goes up. But that will change as we go along here. But anyways, we'll talk about the Detroit Lions first. The Lions this year have a new head coach in Matt Patricia, a guy that has been part of the Patriots organization for many years and has served quite a few seasons as a defensive coordinator, won 2 Super Bowls with the team, and is now got the opportunity to be the head coach. Now it certainly it's definitely going to impact the way that New England is going to function, but they've been okay. But how does it change the Lions now that they have him as the head coach? Well, a lot of people point at the defense as being what's going to end up improving, and I agree, because I think that the Patriots, despite their lack of talent on defense, they've been able to adjust to situations, especially just under Bill Belichick generally. And if that same, whatever adjustments that Matt Patricia brings with him to Detroit, I think will play a very heavy hand in how the defense is performing. We'll talk about the defense in a second, but let's talk about what I think is the strongest part of this team, which is the offense. And obviously, you go to Matthew Stafford as the front of this team. This guy is so freaking durable. It's insane. he is almost always out there for the Lions, despite getting injured. He's always wanting to get out there and play for this team. He's an excellent athlete, and he's such a good quarterback too. I know that he's kind of like, he teeters on the line of being average at times, but then there's just these plays that he makes where he just throws a beautiful football, and it kind of makes you wonder. It's another one of these guys that are like, when is this guy gonna get his shot? Not only of, obviously the Super Bowl is in mind, but even just winning a playoff game. The Lions have not won a playoff game since he's been around. That needs to change at some point. Stafford is too good to let that go to waste. So what does he have around him? Well, the biggest question with the Lions has always been at the running back position. They've not had a solid starting running back. I mean, I can't think too far back, but I mean, is it too unrealistic to say that they haven't had a real franchise guy since Barry Sanders? I don't know, but I think that right now with the way the running back situation is that they're going to rely on a a two back system again, where they're gonna or not two back, but just do like a cycle through running backs. I'm forgetting the name of it. Um, it's just a running back committee. That's the word. But I do think that they should rely on LeGarrette Blount, who has proven in the last few years that that he wherever he goes, apparently success is found. He's just always in the mix, and he's won multiple Super Bowls because of it. Um, but I think he's gonna play a huge role in being that power back that he always has been. But who I'm always really interested in learning about and hoping that he gets to see a lot of action this year is Kerryon Johnson. A guy that I loved watching in Auburn. He was my favorite player to watch on that team last year, especially in the Alabama game. He did unfortunately get injured in that game, but when he was on the field, he was such an impact player, and he's so elusive. He's so good. He reminds me a little bit of Le'Veon Bell at times in the way that he plays, but he can do a lot of things. He can catch the football, but he can also run through people as well. And I think that's what I'm most looking forward to with him. He should be the future starting running back for the Lions. Right now, I can understand it being the committee though, because you don't know where he's going to be at this point right now. Maybe mid-season I might be able to take over that job, but again, we'll see how that goes. But what has been consistent with this team is that the wide receiver position has not been too bad for this team. Got Golden Tate, who is entering his upteenth year, what feels like his millionth year with the team. But now he's only been there for a little bit of time, but he's just so synonymous with the Lions. And he's gonna be there, and you still have Marvin Jones from initially from Cincinnati, came over in the 2015 offseason, I believe, or 2016 offseason. So, and then you have Kenny Galladay, who's shown some flashes when he was a rookie last year. Will play an important part going into this year. So, you got weapons is where I'm getting at with this offense. This is a offense that's filled with weapons, and that's going to play a big part. Mr. Jim Bob Cooter returns as offensive coordinator, even though they did lose the head coach. Matt Patricia was just like, hey, we'll keep you around. And so Cooter is going to come in, and he's going to be and he has shown that he can make adjustments with this offense, and he can build something that's going to wreck defenses, hopefully. So the Lions, I'm always low on the Lions because I always feel like it's a team that always gets oh, well, maybe this might be the year, but they never really get talked about, and then that's mostly because when the regular season actually hits, they end up always disappointing. Maybe this might be the year that it finally turns around for them. They might actually have a good year. But we'll talk about how tough that's going to be in a second. Let's talk about the offensive line, because their big first-round draft pick was Frank Ragnow, who is a center, but he's going to be playing left guard for this team. He was a center in college. So he's going to be moved over. Graham Glasgow for now is going to be the center. TJ Lang is a right guard. Ricky Wagner, who I think was brought over this offseason. I feel like it's been so fucking long, but he was brought over this offseason. And Taylor Decker. That group, that's a solid group. I mean, I do want to see Graham Glasgow get a little bit better, but he's young and he can grow. Same with Taylor Decker, although he's shown that he could play pretty well. Ricky Wagner is a very good player from Baltimore. TJ Lang from his days in Green Bay has been good. And then you have Frank Ragnow, which you could have rookie struggles there, but that's a good offensive line. So this offense overall is pretty good. Even if you lose, you lost Eric Ebron, which was that terrible of a loss for the Lions? I don't know if it really was. And you get Luke Wilson to be your tight end. That he was a very good player for the Seahawks. Never really was a big name in the league, or no one really talks about him a lot, but he was a very reliable weapon for the Seahawks when needed. now he's with the Lions. He's your starter, and I think that could work out for them. So this team is loaded on offense, top to bottom, very good. The problem is going to be the defense, and again, Matt Patricia, what he did in New England, and you could say for sure that Bill Belichick was his hands are probably all over as well. But they were able with such little talent at times to actually make something work with what they had. So let's talk about that. So right now, your defensive line has the return of Ziggy Ansah. He is back, and he was your franchise tag player. I don't even think they got a deal done, as far as I'm concerned. But he kind of had a rebound year last year. He looked a little bit better than he did the year before. But this could be the season where he could have a breakout with a new system, with a new guy leading the team. You have Sylvester Williams, who's been a veteran, who's moved around a little bit from Tennessee, and he was with Denver Broncos as well. A'Shawn Robinson, 2016 second-round pick, and Anthony Zettel, 2016 sixth-round pick. So this is a young team, and these are two players that have been developing under this team for 2 years. They have undergone a coaching change, of course, but let's see how their ability has shown out. But right now, the left side of the line is completely different, or completely young, at least, and interesting. And then you have the linebacking core as it stands right now, with Gerard Davis, I think, being the headliner because he's your last year's first-round pick. Had a bit of a rocky year, didn't play very well, but maybe he'll have a rebound year in him. But you have Christian Jones and Devon Kennard on either side, and I'm not really too confident in that linebacking core right now. I mean, again, if Gerard Davis plays to a first-round draft pick pedigree, then that changes everything. But right now, it doesn't look great. I think the strength of the team is the secondary, because you have Darius Slay and Glover Quinn as probably the two guys that stand out the most, who have made a lot of great plays at those positions. Glover Quinn specifically, he year after year continues to be one of the most important Detroit players on the team constantly. And I like Darius Slay personally. Has been very involved with the defense. You do have Quandre Diggs and Nevin Lawson right now as starting at their certain positions as well. But I don't know. I look at that group, and you also have Tavon Wilson there in the mix that I think probably could start. Deshaun Sheed as well at cornerback. But overall, I look at this team. I have so many questions. They did trade for Eli Harold though, which I think might be interesting for the linebacking group. I forgot that happened as of recently. But I don't know. A lot of the rookies have been pushed to the bottom. There's not a lot of rookies starting on this defense. But it is still relatively young. A lot of guys that they've tried to develop over time. I'm not too sure about the group, but again, you have those few guys that like Ziggy Ansah, Glover Quinn, Darius Slay that I'm 100% confident in, would bank on them. It's the using of that other talent that I'm very much wondering how Patricia's going to adjust to that. The defensive coordinator is Paul Pasqualoni. I think that Matt Patricia will probably have more of a say over Mr. Paul there. But that's where I'm at in terms of the team. Here's the thing though with the Lions, and although I also want to say this, have a great special teams unit as well with Matt Prater and Zam Martin. Both have played very well for the Lions, so that's something to keep an eye on for the special teams. The Lions, to me, have an uphill battle. regardless of how good they are, because you have to deal with the Vikings, which is right now, I think, one of the deepest teams in the league. You have to deal with the Packers, who, again, I think there are some holes in that team, but you can't, when a team is led by a guy like Aaron Rodgers, you have to be concerned. And he's had no problems dealing blows to the Lions over the course of the last few years. Well, the last few years especially. And then you do have to worry about the Bears. The Bears tend to upset either one of the Lions or the Vikings at times. And I think the Bears have gotten ridiculously better this year. And I don't know if the Lions team, outside of having the offense be like as solid as it fucking is right now, I don't know how to feel about them going up against their divisional opponents. I just think there's a lot of really deep group. This is we've used the expression before. This is a team that has a chance to be a second place wild card team or even a divisional winner if they are able, that things go their way and they are able to just kick ass when it matters in terms of the divisional games. But this is a team that could also go in last place, and I would not be surprised about either. I would actually be surprised about the divisional winning, but they have a chance at the wild card, as they always do. But I am just very skeptical about that defensive side of the ball and how that goes. The offense, I have no serious concerns about. I think the offense is going to be fun. I think it's going to make the team exciting, but they need to be able to have chances to get onto the field, and I don't know if this defense can really help with that. They have players, that can perform very well for the team and that can get them wins. But the offense can't save your team alone. It just can't. You have to have someone you need to have a unit that's functionable. So again, there's some players that I think that they have an opportunity now to prove that they are capable. But I am just overall skeptical. Let's look at the schedule specifically. Not a terrible schedule, I would say, for the Lions. I'm not like, when I think about the NFC North, I do think it's one of the deepest in the NFL right now. But I feel like the division is what's going to be the hardest for any of the NFC North teams. Let's look at this team, the schedule for a second. You have to face the Jets the first game. Sorry to spoil Sam Darnold's debut, or if that ends up being the case, or the return of Teddy Bridgewater. But I'm pretty sure the Lions are going to win that. I'm pretty confident. Then you have the Niners. I don't want to count out the Niners considering how well they were playing down the stretch, but how long can they keep it up? That's my big concern with the Niners. So when it's 50-50, I'm going to go with the team that I'm talking about right now, which is the Lions. All right, so let's say 2-0. Then you have to face the Patriots. The Patriots, at least, Bill Belichick doesn't have like a very successful coaching tree that is under him. But he certainly has a way to, going to where his his Patriots assistants are now head coaching and kicking their motherfucking ass like that, just enjoying, just whipping them and just killing them over and over, and then shaking their head afterwards. That's what Bill Belichick does, is that he sends these assistants off to the other teams, and they end up not performing well. So I think regardless of how well Matt Patricia does in his career, this will be one that he wishes to. This game would be one that he wishes to not remember. I think the Patriots will destroy the Lions. Then you have the Cowboys. I think the Lions could win that. I think it's a really good offense against a good young defense. Could have some troubles with Ezekiel Elliott on the defensive side. It's 50-50. I'll lean towards the Lions. But then you have the Packers. That's the first divisional game. That's not too bad. To start the season with no divisional matches, that's a good start. You have the Patriots to make up for it, obviously. Um, they have to face the Packers, Dolphins, Lions, and Vikings. I think the Packers, it might be difficult to face them, although you could maybe beat them in the when you're at home. That I won't count that out. Dolphins you can beat. Seahawks you could probably beat. But that's 50-50. And the Vikings that I think will hurt you and destroy you. Although that's the thing though, because like the thing about the Vikings is that they're so good, but then they drop a game that you don't expect. And last year that was that game. The Lions, they went to Minnesota and kicked their ass. That was early in the season, but regardless, that was one of the only 3 losses the Vikings had all year. Obviously, before the destruction in Philadelphia and the NFC champion. But regardless, I would lean toward Vikings beating them, but they have disappointed before. Then you have to face the Bears within 2 games in 3 weeks. You have the Panthers in between. Then you have the Rams. Oh, Jesus Christ! All right, so the Rams will be I think they'll win that. The Bears you could probably split with. You can even maybe think of a sweep, but I'm not gonna go that far right now. Panthers, I think there's a good opportunity there to beat them. I don't think the Panthers' offense is looking to be too loaded, but again, we'll see. Then you have the Cardinals, the Bills, the Vikings again, the Packers. So 2 games that you can easily win. Then you have the Vikings and then the Packers. I truly think, looking at the schedule, it's going to really, really depend. I think you could beat everyone in the AFC East except for the Patriots. You have a good chance of beating everyone in the NFC East except for maybe the Rams. And then you have to face from the other divisions. You have to face the Cowboys, which I think you have a good shot at. And the Panthers, I don't see why you could not. I think that you have a good shot. It's the Panthers are always a tough team to read because you're like, they had such high expectations, in going into 2016 and then blew it, and then people were kind of like tempted them, and then they ended up doing well last year, but then again the offense was not that amazing, and there's also some defensive issues too, but they ended up making it to the playoffs, but that's possible. I think this team, the Lions, they need to be ready to battle it out in the division and win some big games. They have to be able to win against the Vikings or the Packers at least once each, and even the Bears. You have to beat the Bears. If you can't beat the Bears, you're not beating the Packers or Vikings. And again, I'm not trying to shut on the Bears in that sense. I think they've improved this year, but they are clearly the weaker team of the other ones, of the Packers and the Vikings right now. If you can't beat the Bears, you get swept up by the Bears, you're gonna have problems against the other two. So, you gotta win the division. So, that for the Lions for now. Trying to think of other things I want to talk about before talking about the Ravens in the second half. Between the Ravens and the Lions, I want to do this now because again, the halftime is shorter with the quick presentation. I am a believer in the Ravens making it to the playoffs over the Lions, for the sole purpose of, I think that this year, more than any other year, I think the Ravens team, as we know it, is more loaded on both sides of the ball. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But my question of which of these two teams more likely to make the playoffs is going to be the Ravens. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Could be wrong. Could be very wrong. I think the Lions. Well, I'm interested in seeing at one point. I would love to see a playoff game at Ford Field at some point. It's a shame that it hasn't happened yet, but it seems like an atmosphere that you would like to see something cool happen. You know, like you want to have like this really cool playoff environment inside that domed area. You know, not dome, but like, you know what I mean. That I like the idea of indoor arenas being home to playoff games. I loved it for the Saints, and I loved it for the Cowboys. So I like it for this team as well. Cardinals, oh my God, the Cardinals! Holy crap, those games were in. At least that one game against the Packers in that playoff. Oh my God, it's just insane. It's always an insane environment inside it. I don't understand why people hate indoor football so much. I mean, I get like oh well, it takes the weather element out. You know, that's not as fun. You know, there's teams that have to deal with the weather, and you guys don't. Well, that's the point of home field advantage. If the players want to play inside, then well, good for them. Then they let them have it. You know, Vikings were a great environment for the playoffs as well. So, you know, come on. I think it's fun to do domed battles. But I do love a good snow game or raining game. It's good. Alright. Let's talk Ravens now as we enter the third quarter here. So, interesting offseason for the Ravens. But I also think in the twilight of Ozzie Newsome's career, as he is almost done, really. I mean, there's a few moves that you make during the regular season, certainly, but not as much as in the leading up to it. He's almost done, and he's going to be retiring at the end of this season, and will be passing. He'll be stepping down. Someone else will be filling that role, but in the twilight of his career, I think that Ozzie Newsome had one of his best off seasons that he's had. That I think many people might look back at and remember if everything goes right. So let's talk about it. You start with what happened in the draft. You add a guy, Hayden Hurst. A guy that they have not had a tight end, a useful tight end in quite a few years. And he comes in, and right out of the gate, you think he's making an impact, especially in the Hall of Fame game. He was all over the place in the Hall of Fame game. And he should be the starter by a landslide. I know right now, at least on this chart, it says Nick Boyle and Max Williams. I think Hayden Hurst is going to make an impact. Although I think Hayden Hurst is also injured right now. So that sucks. But in terms of future stuff, we're talking future more so. Nick Boyle is the tight end for now. But then you have a move into the first round. And you grab this 32nd overall pick. And they make this selection that everyone was hoping would happen, and that was Lamar Jackson being taken at the end of the first round, the guy that made college football so much fun over the last few years, or one of the guys. I think him and Deshaun Watson for sure. He was such a dynamic player, running around with the football, can throw great deep bombs as well. He was able to just transform that quarterback position in so many ways, or at least if not transform being the word, then it just completely kicking ass in that role. And you take him, and you're basically saying you're going to be our quarterback of the future. And Mr. Joe Flacco, you gotta have a big year now. You're gonna have to prove to us that we should start you over Lamar Jackson at some point. And good that for Joe Flacco that he had a pretty okay preseason, and training camp as well, and that Lamar Jackson hasn't. He's been kind of, he's had to adjust a little bit, to the NFL level. He played his best game, I think, last Saturday, against the Dolphins, but there's a ways to go for him. So Joe Flacco is going to remain the starter. But what is Lamar? Well, and also they did pick up Robert Griffin III, who's going to help in probably developing Lamar Jackson. Probably won't be a future quarterback for this team, but maybe he's beginning his comeback, and another team will grab him. Who knows? But the big question with Joe Flacco is, all right, well, first of all, is he elite? Let's stop with that. I'm not even going to address that. But the second question is, what does he have around him? Because this team has struggled constantly on the offensive side of the ball, in terms of how to build around Flacco and make him a better player. But because he hasn't had that power or those playmakers, at least, it has made him much worse, and it's made the offense much worse, and it's made them lose games. And they've had to solely rely on the greatest kicker in the league, in Justin Tucker. But this year feels different. The running back position right now, the starter is Alex Collins, who I love. He played such a good downfield football last year, and he's going to do it again. Obviously, you're going to still see Javarius Allen and Kenneth Dixon in the mix for that running back, but I do truly think that Alex Collins is going to get that role. They haven't had a true running back in a while, but as the season kind of winded down last year, they started to find him, and I think Collins is going to go a long way with that Irish dancing, fucking, just stepping his way into the end zone every single time. I think he's going to be great. But then you have the receiving core. The receiving core, they've been looking for a wide receiver for a long time outside of, Steve Smith. So who do they have? Well, this offseason, they got 3 solid wide receivers that they're going to roll with in Michael Crabtree, starting for the Raiders, started with the Niners. Willie Snead, who started for a long time with the Saints. John Brown, who has been a development player as well as a starter in Arizona. Those are 3 players that you bring on who very much own their, either a one top wide receiver role or a second wide receiver role. They are so good. when they've been with their teams, they've been such playmakers. Especially Crabtree, who was last year had to kind of carry the Raiders in a way because of the way that the Amari Cooper was playing. Willie Snead, when he was on the Saints, played very well in going down the field, running down the field, and catching the deep throws as well. John Brown played very well in the slot, and I think on the outside as well. So right now he's listed here as a slot receiver. I feel like Willie Snead also plays pretty well in the slot from what I remember of him. But Snead hasn't really played too much last year. I think last year he was dealing with injury. But that's such a good group, and I think the Brashard Perryman experiment is over. So I don't think they're not going to be relying on that. But overall, with Hayden Hurst, who hopefully he gets back from injury soon, you have the other wide receivers that they added in free agency, and the way they've been playing this offseason or this preseason has been awesome. It looks like such a better team. It looks like such a more fun team. This offense has been such a dud for so long. Let's look at the offensive line. You had Ronnie Stanley, who's going to hopefully develop a little bit more. He's entering his 3rd year now at this position, but he has some struggles that he has to go over. But I think that he's on his way to becoming a really great player. Marshall Yanda, a guy that's been there for over a decade now, and is going to continue to be a huge impact. on that line. And you have Alex Lewis at left guard, Matt Skura at center, and James Hurst at right tackle. Now, of course, all those guys sound a little different. It's because they are, because a lot of their starters ended up leaving to the other teams, unfortunately. Ricky Wagner, we were just talking about, of course, having gone from Baltimore to Detroit. But I think that this line is going to do well in protecting Joe Flacco this year. And at least at this point, Flacco won't have to hold on to the ball for too long. Because I think you have a receiving core that you're going to be able to throw to. So this group is good. And there's a lot to look forward to with all of them. I think that the big question is going to be is how healthy can this group stay, because the Ravens have a history of losing players to injury, unfortunately. And then how healthy can they stay, and if they are healthy, how are all these weapons going to be used, and how is Lamar Jackson going to be used? Because they've been making it seem like he's going to just show up in the middle of an offense at one point. He's going to be playing receiver. He's going to be playing running back. And that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that. How Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson together in one offense is going to end up working. How Lamar Jackson is going to be used as a weapon. Or, other plot twist, Lamar Jackson is under center and they throw to Joe Flacco. Flacco has been very underrated in using in his wheels, man. He's able to run the football very well. And it hasn't been shown in the last few years, but he's good. I you know what? I said that in a joking way, but that could happen where Lamar Jackson just throws deep down the field and Joe Flacco's there to catch it and just runs it in. Everyone lose their fucking minds, but it could actually happen. And that's what's so cool about it. Anyways, so I'm really excited about this offense, if you can't tell. The defense, you can never doubt the Ravens' defense. And that's why I spent so much time talking about the offense, because that's where the major concern is. You still have C.J. Mosley and Terrell Suggs starting at the linebacking position. And they are going to be the stars of the team. But Brandon Williams is still there, who was very good on the defensive line. You have Michael Pierce and Brett Urban there on the defensive end. You also have Patrick Onwuzor and Matt Judon. That group is really deep. I like Tyus Bowser a lot too, who's a backup right now. Chris Wormley on the defensive line as well. You know, just there's a lot of homegrown teams. And when I say homegrown, I mean homegrown players rather. These are guys that they drafted and have been on the team. There's not a lot of free agents on this team, at least in the front seven. When you get backwards, then you have Brandon Carr from Dallas. You have Tony Jefferson for safety. Eric Weddle as well as safety, and then there's Jimmy Smith. I'll talk about him in a second, but this is a really solid group. Brandon Carr has been starting for a long time, by the way. I believe he's the one that's started an absurd amount of games, and that's going to be a very interesting secondary to watch, because that used to be a weak spot for them. I don't think it is as much anymore. Jimmy Smith, unfortunately, is suspended. He is going to be out for 4 games. And so, what is this team going to do without Jimmy Smith? Well, first of all, there is concern about him because it was a domestic violence situation. I don't see why they couldn't. I understand he's been a starter. He's been very good for the team. But considering the history of this team with Ray Rice and various other reasons, might want to consider not keeping him on, because I don't know if there's I don't know. I would be concerned about that, but I don't think it would be too bad of a loss either, because you think about who they have behind Jimmy Smith right now. And though he is sitting behind Carr, I do think that Marlon Humphrey, who is their first round draft pick, he needs to be able to get out there at some point. He can't be a backup forever. And he's, he needs some time to still develop a little bit, but if you get him out there and he gets some snaps at right cornerback, see how he does. I think that he'll do really well. So I think, well, I mean, I think he needs some time to develop. And I don't think he'll be great, instantly. But I think he will have a huge impact on this season if they do the right thing by starting him over anyone else and getting him a lot of snaps. I think he can grow into being a very good player. So that's my take. But again, I look at some of these starters and I'm like, I'm not too high on them. But again, like, this defense time and time again has shown to be a very good unit, and I don't think that's going to stop, especially when you still have CJ Mosley, Terrell Suggs, you have Brandon Williams, all that control in the front seven, you have Eric Weddle and Tony Jefferson and Brandon Carr, all of who in the secondary. Marlon Humphreys could be growing. You have a lot of these guys like Matt Judon and Brett Urban and like who else? Like I said earlier, Tyus Bowser, Chris Wormley, like all these guys that you've drafted and you're developing. This is what keeps this team so good, is that they're reading defensive players so well and they're working out so well for this team. So I think that's going to end up working out for them. And of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Justin Tucker. Very excited for him. Very excited to see how he does. So let's talk about the Ravens' schedule this year. Let's break it down for this right now. Okay. So, you open up against the Bills. I'm going to say that's a win. Then you go face the Bengals. Might be tough. I think they'll win it, though. Against the Broncos. Again, I think that's a winnable game. Steelers. The Ravens are always in the mix against the Steelers. And I think this is one of the best Ravens teams that we've seen in a little while. Could be a win. Again, against the Browns. I think that's a win. Against the Titans. Could very well be the win. Then you have the Saints. And that's maybe not so much a win. We'll see how much that can grow. But I think that will be a difficult challenge for them, but it is the first game in quite some time that in the first few that I really feel hesitant about. So that's a good sign. The Panthers, I think the Ravens can win that. So then you have the Steelers again. Could be a split series with that team, but we'll see. Bengals could also be a split, but I feel more confident the Ravens could sweep. Raiders, I think the Ravens could beat them. Falcons, that's a difficult one as well. I think that's two very difficult games for the Ravens. Chiefs, I think they could beat. Bucks, I think they can beat. Chargers, that is also I'm a little hesitant on. But that's a fascinating game. If both of them are still in the mix, that's a fascinating game down the stretch. And then Browns, Ravens to close it out. I think that this team should go to the playoffs. It should be a very big factor in the playoffs as well. They always are. They could absolutely play spoiler. John Harbaugh is a good coach. This team needs it. This team needs to get back to the playoffs because they always are going to play a chaos role in their own way. They'll be in the mix. They can't. Well, a lot of their harm has been over the years has been the failing to make plays and failing to move the sticks. And I think that this year they have what it takes to do so. They should be able to do it. But things can go bad, and I think that there could also be a concern if we're going to talk offensively. Depth might be an issue. If you lose someone, there might be a concern because Joe Flacco gets hurt. You have Robert Griffin III. He hasn't necessarily worked out, but maybe he might improve. But do you really want him starting? Or do you want Lamar Jackson starting while he's still learning? Because I think right now, Joe Flacco is the guy you should be most comfortable with starting because he's been there. Um, and Alex Collins goes down. You have Allen, you have Dixon. Do you know if you can rely on them? I'm not too sure. Dixon has been getting a lot of hype, though, so maybe that's not too bad. But then you look behind the wide receivers, and there's not like a ton of big names there. And then again, you see Perryman there, but I don't know if he's even going to make the roster, like I've said earlier. Tight end right now, you lost Hayden Hurst right now for the first few weeks. What's going to happen with him? If you have to start Nick Boyle, that's not necessarily the name that you would expect. You could have Max Williams. Max Williams was, I believe, a high second-round pick, or he was touted for the Ravens. I don't know why he wouldn't start, but still, it just shows you how thin this group is, despite the fact that it has greatly improved. And if everyone stays healthy, this could easily be a great unit. But not everything can go in their favor. So that's the core of the Ravens, and that's what we need to see. Can they, even if the adversity that hits when someone gets injured, how can the backups fill that role and be able to not have like a huge loss there? We'll see how that goes. I want to talk about what the connection between these two teams are. But I think at its core, it's two teams that are trying to figure out a way to solve something that has been bad for quite some time, and that has been the Lions defense and the Ravens offense. They're looking to improve on depth charts and improve on the field. These units that have been severely lacking, and this is the year to prove it. And it's interesting that they're playing right now, the Ravens offense and the Lions defense, as we're watching this game. And that's what's happening. But it's the truth. That is going to be really, really important to see improvement on in the coming weeks, as the season begins to start. So that is that. Can we please hurry up the end of this game, please? They have to. I think that they're gonna punt. I think actually, and so now the Lions are gonna go down the field and try to score. This was a much more exciting game than the Ravens game against the Lions last year. That was, as far as I remember, that was not a close game. That was kind of a messy game, I think. I'll double check on that though. Ravens versus Lions. Let's look at what happened last year. Yeah, 44-20. Yeah, I was not close. that was a rough game. And that was man, and I was not surprised to see the Lions not make it, but man, that I remember watching that game and thinking, this Ravens team is ready to get back to the playoffs. That's another thing too. It's an interesting way how they start the season, Ravens, because you have the Bills, the team that basically got in because you lost. And then you face the Bengals, that team that beat your ass and got the Bills in the playoffs. You get revenge right out of the gate. Beat those two teams, like, convincingly. Alright? Like, just go all out and destroy them, because they took away your chance for a playoff berth, and they almost cost John Harbaugh his job. They've been talking about how he was almost on the hot seat, or he was on the hot seat, and he was almost fired after that happened. That would have sucked. They can't get rid of Harbaugh right now. They can't. And they shouldn't do it even if this year is not a success. This is such a good team right now. You can't just send him away. He's been with this team for too long for you to do that. Keep him around. That's another storyline to follow. If this team crashes and burns, will John Harbaugh leave? that would be stunning. That really would be stunning, and it would be even more stunning if he gets fired and then he doesn't find a place to go. He should though. He absolutely should. I believe wasn't he one of the rare like special team coaches to go from special teams to head coach? Because that usually does not happen. It's usually like a coordinator job or like or a offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. But he was the special teams coordinator for the Eagles, and then he got the job. I find that fascinating. I find that cool. All right, so that's the end of that. Oh wow, he's only been the coach since 2008. I feel like he's been around for much longer than that. Interesting. Alright. Alrighty then. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We had to let it play out. I wish I could just fucking skip this. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the buttons on the computer version of Madden right now. I don't know those specifics right now. I haven't gotten used to that necessarily. But we'll get there, I'm sure. Yeah, also, him walking to the tunnel just reminded me, I wonder how long Terrell Suggs still has. It'll be interesting to see. Alright, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Be good to one another, be kind to one another, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.